Let AI automate the repetitive tasks that don't bring you joy. Because every minute it saves is another minute you can spend doing the things that only you can do.
I'm Sam G, a triple registered architect who has practiced across South Africa, Australia, and the USA. This is your design passport. Real stories, practical pathways, and global design ideas to help you build a career and a life that travels with you. Ready? Let's stamp your passport.
Welcome back to Your Design Passport, the podcast where we explore architecture and design, career journeys, and the ideas shaping our profession. I'm your host, Sam G. In the last episode, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Samantha Flores from Corgan to talk about artificial intelligence, architecture, and where our profession might be heading. If you haven't listened to that conversation yet, I definitely recommend going back and giving it a listen. Samantha shared some fantastic insights into where AI is heading as an industry. But once we'd finished recording, I found myself thinking less about where AI is going and more about how I'm actually using it today. Not in theory, not in some futuristic AI is going to take over the world kind of way, just as an architect, as a podcaster, as someone juggling work, study, and about 100 other things at any given time. Now, if you've listened to the podcast for a while, you'll know I'm a bit of a technology nerd. I like trying new software, I love finding ways to work smarter, not harder, and yes, I use AI almost every single day. But I also think we're at a point where it's worth taking a step back and asking ourselves one simple question. Just because AI can do something, does that mean it should? I think one of the biggest misconceptions about AI is that you have to sit on one side of the fence. You're either completely obsessed with it or completely against it. Personally, I'm somewhere in the middle. I think AI is incredible, but I also think it's exactly what it's always been, a tool, not a replacement for thinking. When I look back over the last year, there were actually two moments that made me stop and think, okay, this changes everything. Neither of them were particularly glamorous. The first one, meeting minutes. I know, not exactly the answer you were expecting. I'm currently working on 2 high schools in West Texas. Together, each of them is around 800,000 square feet. Huge projects. They're currently in contract administration and under construction. With projects of this scale comes an unbelievable amount of consultant coordination. What starts out as one coordination meeting suddenly becomes 6. Architectural coordination, structural coordination, MEPT, specialist consultants, owner meetings, general coordination, every week. Every meeting creates decisions, action items, follow-ups, and meeting minutes. We divided the meetings between different team members. Everyone became responsible for championing one meeting. At least that was the idea. Because asking a room full of creative people to get excited about writing meeting minutes, well, it's a bit like pulling teeth. It feels less like an architect and more like a nagging mom. Has everyone finished their meeting minutes? They're important. They've saved my backside more times than I can count. Everyone would nod. Everyone agreed. For a week. Then we had exactly the same conversation all over again. The funny thing is, that was only last year. We honestly felt like we were fumbling. We knew AI was going to become part of our workflow. We just weren't entirely sure how. Looking back now, it already feels like a completely different world. And that's kind of crazy, because it wasn't 5 years ago. It hasn't even been 2 years ago. This was last year. For years, we've been used to technology moving at a fairly predictable pace. Maybe your office was still one version behind in Revit. Maybe someone hadn't updated AutoCAD just yet. Maybe another office was still using an older version of ArchiCAD. That all felt normal. Software evolved every now and then. AI feels completely different. New tools, new models, new features. Almost every week, there's something new. It can feel overwhelming. And I know there are people listening who probably feel like they've already missed the boat, like everyone else has figured it out, like they're already too far behind to even bother starting. Personally, I think that's completely false. I honestly believe we're still right at the beginning. We're all learning, we're all experimenting, we're all trying to figure out where these tools fit into our workflows. Nobody has this completely worked out yet. Fast forward to today. We still record our meetings, we still generate transcripts, we still review everything ourselves. But AI can now generate attendance registers, organize action items, format meeting minutes consistently, and have them ready for review in a fraction of the time. That doesn't mean we blindly hit send. Far from it. We still review, we still edit, we still check everything for accuracy. But what used to take ages, and honestly sap the life out of us just thinking about it, now takes minutes. Which means we can spend more time doing the work we actually enjoy. Designing, problem solving, working with clients, instead of formatting bullet points for an hour. Now, here's something that might surprise you. I still think younger architects need to learn how to take proper meeting minutes, because note-taking isn't just admin. It's a skill. It's listening. It's learning how to identify what's important. It's understanding why one decision matters more than another. AI can absolutely help, but if you don't understand what happened in the meeting, you won't know if AI got it right. And that's where our judgment still matters. The second moment that really made me stop and think was seeing software like Midjourney generate concept imagery. It can now produce dozens of design options in the time it took to sketch one. That's incredible. It's exciting. But it's also creating a challenge I don't think many people were talking about a year ago. More and more stories are surfacing of clients asking architects to recreate an AI-generated building or space because they saw an image online and fell in love with it. I completely understand why. Some of those images are stunning. But here's the question. Is that beautiful staircase actually leading somewhere? Has the glazing been calculated to comply with the latest energy code? Does the layout satisfy egress requirements? Does it actually meet building code? Can it even be built? AI can generate beautiful images. Architects design buildings that stand up, keep people safe, and perform the way they're supposed to. Those are two very different things. If anything, AI reinforces why our expertise matter, why our professional judgment matters, why clients still need architects. Because knowing what looks good is very different from knowing why it works.
Quick pause here. If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Your Design Passport. It helps more globally minded architects find this show. And if you're considering working internationally and don't want to feel like you're starting over, I've created a free guide called the International Architect Starter Map. It walks you through the exact strategic questions you should answer before touching a single application form. You can download that in the show notes.
Outside architecture, AI has probably had the biggest impact on everything else I do. This podcast is a perfect example. ChatGPT, or as I affectionately call it, Chatty, has become my brainstorming partner. Now, before anyone starts clutching their pearls, no, Chatty doesn't write the podcast. I do. What Chatty does really well is help me make sense of the mess that's going on inside my head. I'll literally brain dump everything into it. Random thoughts, half-finished ideas, stories I've remembered, questions I want to ask, things that have popped into my head while driving to work, probably a few spelling mistakes, and an occasional typo that makes absolutely no sense. Then I'll ask it to help me organize everything into a logical flow. One of the things I've done recently is develop a master prompt that I use after every single podcast interview. It gives me a consistent framework to work from every time. It helps me identify recurring themes, potential episode titles, social media content, newsletter ideas, and all of the little bits and pieces that go into producing a podcast. It doesn't replace the work, it gives me somewhere to start. Sometimes I know exactly what I want to say. I just need help structuring it. Other times, I've got absolutely nothing, and staring at a blank page isn't helping anyone. Sometimes all I need is a starting point, because I found it's much easier to comment on something that's already in front of you than it is to create something from absolutely nothing. We've all been in those meetings or workshops where the facilitator asks, "So, does anyone have any thoughts?" Silence. Absolute crickets. Nobody wants to be the first person to put themselves out there. But the moment someone throws an idea onto the table, whether people absolutely love it or loathe it, suddenly the room comes alive. Ideas spark more ideas. People start building on one another's thoughts. Someone says, "Oh, what if we tried this?" Another person says, "I actually don't think that will work." And before you know it, you've got a fantastic workshop. That's exactly how I use AI. Not because I want to have the answer, but because sometimes I just need something to react to. Another place where Chatty genuinely saved me an enormous amount of time was while I was completing my ALEP studies. If you've ever done a certification like that, you know the amount of reading is enormous. Research papers, industry reports, academic articles, books, case studies, guidelines, standards. It felt never ending. Chatty helped me summarize information, identify recurring themes, find commonalities between one week's reading and the next, even connect ideas between modules that I probably wouldn't have recognized until much later. That saved me hours, maybe even days. But here's the important part. I never wanted AI to do the learning for me. Because if all you've done is ask AI to summarize the material, write your assignment, and hand in a beautifully polished report, what have you actually learned? Sure, you may have received a fantastic grade, but 5 years from now, what are you actually going to remember? What knowledge are you going to apply on your next project? How has that changed the way you think? Because that's what education is supposed to do. Not just help you pass a course, it's supposed to change the way you solve problems. That's why I think AI should amplify your thinking, not replace it. As architects, we train to think critically. We explore ideas. We test them. We iterate. We solve problems. Rarely is the first idea the best idea. Sometimes it's the 12th. Sometimes it's somewhere in between. The iterative process. That's where creativity comes from. If we hand all of that over to AI, we slowly start diluting one of the most valuable parts of our profession. Use AI to organize your thoughts. Use it to challenge your assumptions. Use it to refine your ideas. Use it to speed up the repetitive tasks. But don't outsource the thinking, because that's still your job. Now, I should probably also confess something. I'm still a little skeptical. Maybe I've watched a little too many sci-fi movies. But I'm still not giving AI access to my bank account, or my passwords, or my email, or anything that allows it to start making decisions on my behalf. Not just yet, anyway. I recently had my HSA account hacked and completely drained. Thankfully, everything's sorted out now, but it's a good reminder that technology isn't perfect. Neither are people, and neither are the systems we build. Personally, I'm much more comfortable taking a slightly more siloed approach. AI can absolutely help me. I just don't think it needs to know absolutely everything about me. The day Chatty teams up with my robot vacuum and decides they're running the household, I'm out. Although, if it wanted to take care of the spring cleaning, mop the floors, clean the toilets, defrost the freezer, dust the ceiling fan, do all those jobs that somehow never quite make it to the top of the to-do list, well, maybe I'd reconsider. One thing AI has definitely taught me is that it can be incredibly confident. Sometimes a little too confident. I remember asking it a question about penthouse construction and some very specific requirements in the 2018 International Building Code. It gave me an answer. It sounded polished, professional, well written. It even cited code sections. It was also wrong. When I challenged it, it immediately apologized, agreed with me, and produced a completely different answer. Now imagine if I didn't know enough to question it in the first place. That's the danger. confidence. It's not the same as correctness. There's another thing I've noticed. Sometimes AI tries just a little too hard to be nice. If I asked it a leading question, it'll often agree with me, tell me my idea is great, validate my thinking. But honestly, I don't need another cheerleader. I need someone or something that challenges my thinking, shows me another perspective, points out the flaws in my argument, helps me see the things I've missed, because that's where the real learning happens. Not when everyone agrees with you, but when your ideas are challenged. The last thing I've become really conscious of is something I'd call digital procrastination, or maybe even digital hoarding. AI makes it unbelievably easy to create more notes, more prompts, more documents, more folders, more versions, more ideas, more everything. You can spend hours tweaking prompts, reorganizing files, perfecting outputs, making things look prettier, and convince yourself you've been incredibly productive. Meanwhile, you still haven't done the one thing that's actually moving the project forward. Sometimes, the hardest work isn't creating the document, it's just making the decision. And AI can't make that decision for you, not the important ones. So, where does all of this leave us as architects and designers? I think our profession has been here before. Maybe not with AI specifically, but with technology. Think about it. We went from hand drafting to AutoCAD, from AutoCAD to Revit, from Revit to BIM. Every single one of those changes was met with a little bit of fear, questions, uncertainty, people wondering whether architects would still be needed. And yet, here we are, still designing, still problem solving, still creating schools, hospitals, homes, and communities that improve people's lives. Technology didn't replace us. It changed the way we worked. Now, I do think AI is a little different. Not necessarily because it's smarter, but because it's moving so quickly. Every week, there's another announcement, a new model, a new platform, a new feature, a new company claiming they've solved everything. It can feel exhausting trying to keep up, but I don't think we've missed the boat. Far from it. I honestly believe we're still standing on the dock. We're all figuring this out together. We're all experimenting. We're all making mistakes. We're all asking the same questions. How does this fit into what I do? So if you're feeling behind, please don't. You're not. You're right on time. One of the things Samantha Flores and I spoke about was how our profession continues to evolve. I couldn't agree more. Architecture has never stood still, and I don't think it ever will. The role of the architect is changing. The tools are changing. The expectations of our clients are changing. But I don't think that's something to fear. I think it's something we should lead, because if architects don't take ownership of these technologies, someone else will. And then we'll spend the next 10 years reacting to decisions that someone else made for our profession. Personally, I'd much rather help shape that conversation. I think architects are uniquely positioned to do that. We train to think critically. We train to solve problems. We train to balance competing priorities. We train to ask, what happens if? We rarely accept the first answer. We test, we refine, we iterate. That's what makes us architects. And that's exactly why I think we need to stay in the driver's seat. So, where do I land with AI? Honestly, I'm excited. I'm optimistic. I'm also cautious. And I think it's okay to be all three at the same time. I don't think AI should replace your voice. I don't think it should replace your values, or your ethics, or your judgment. Those are the things that make you, you. They're the reason clients trust you. They're the reason your colleagues value your opinion. They're the reason someone picks up the phone and calls you when they have a difficult problem to solve. No software can replace that. Let AI take your meeting minutes. Let it summarize research papers. Let it organize your thoughts. Let it help you overcome the blank page. Let it automate the repetitive tasks that don't bring you joy. Because every minute it saves is another minute you can spend doing the things that only you can do. Thinking, designing, collaborating, mentoring, building relationships, leading teams, being creative, being human. And I think that's the opportunity. Not replacing architects, not replacing designers, not replacing people, but allowing AI to do the things that make us feel more human, so we have more time to focus on the things that make us human. Because at the end of the day, architecture has never really been about drawings, or software, or specifications. It's always been about people, understanding people, listening to people, designing for people, creating places where people can learn, heal, work, live, and thrive. AI doesn't change that. If anything, it reminds us why those human skills have never been more valuable. So if there's one thing I'd leave you with today, it's this. Use AI. Learn it, experiment with it, question it, challenge it, master it. But don't give away the one thing it can never replace: your ability to think, your ability to care, your ability to connect ideas, your creativity, your judgment, because those things are your competitive advantage. And I don't think they ever stop being valuable. Thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Your Design Passport. I genuinely love to hear your thoughts. How are you using AI in your work? Has it changed the way you design, the way you study, or maybe even the way you think? Let's keep the conversation going. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, or through the podcast website. I'd love to hear what's working for you, and maybe even what's not. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with a friend, colleague, or someone who's still trying to figure out where AI fits into their career. And if you haven't already, go back and listen to my conversation with Samantha Flores in episode 17. It was a fantastic discussion, and I hope this episode gave you a more personal perspective on how I'm navigating this rapidly changing world alongside her industry insights. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, keep asking better questions, and keep collecting your own passport snaps. Thank you for joining me on Your Design Passport. My hope is that every episode gives you the clarity, courage, and confidence to build a global design life that feels aligned with who you are, wherever you are. If today's conversation resonated with you, hit follow, share it with a friend, or leave a review so that more global dreamers can find this work. Until next time, keep exploring, keep expanding, and remember, your next chapter is already unfolding.